will follow the Mendelian law of inheritance, which I think all of you people must be knowing. And then we have polygenic inheritance, where multiple genes are contributing to the disease occurring in the person. And then there's multifactorial inheritance, in which, apart from polygenic inheritance, you also have superimposed on that the pattern, the lifestyle pattern, and the environmental factors. They will also be influencing the particular type of disease occurring in the person, right? And then, of course, a little bit you should know about the mitochondrial type of inheritance. Now, switching on to the Mendelian law of Mendelian inheritance, and it is basically, most of the times you will see Mendelian type of inheritance, that is a single gene inheritance. So this Mendelian law, according to the Mendelian law, it can be either the autosomal type or the sex chromosomal type of inheritance, autosomal linked or sex linked inheritance. And what about the autosomal inheritance? Autosomal inheritance can be either dominant or recessive. Similarly, sex linked inheritance can also be either dominant and recessive. It is basically the autosomes, the 22 pairs of autosomes, which will, if the default occurs in any one of them and it's carried in the family, that will be type of autosomal inheritance. And if the particular gene has mutated in this sex chromosome, and that is continuing in the family, will be the sex-linked type of inheritance. Now, switching on to the autosomal inheritance. Now, for autosomal inheritance, we'll just take one example and then everything is the same. So, in this case, we see that the autosomal gene is being carried by the chromosome, autosome in the father, one of the autosomes in the father, and mother is normal. That means we are just considering two autosomes, right? The mother is normal, whereas father, in one of the chromosome of the father, you have this mutated gene. So what is the resultant progeny occurring, or the children, how are they carrying this autosome? So you will see that if the father and mother are meeting, then this particular child will have one mutated gene and the other one is coming from the mother. It will be the normal one. This child similarly, you can make up that one gene is coming from the mother and one from the father. Then this child will be there. The other type of this thing, this particular child will carry one gene from the father and one from the mother. And so this child will be unaffected and this child will also be unaffected. So what will you see? That 50% chances are there that the child may manifest the dominant trait, and 50% chances are there that the child will occur normal. So when you see an autosomal type of inheritance in the family, then you can always say that there are 50% chances that your child produced will be normal, and the 50% chances that the child produced will carry one of the mutated gene. Right. Then what are the characteristics which are followed by the autosomal inheritance? In that, you will see that, as you have already seen, that males and females, they are equally affected, and the transmission of gene occurs between all the sexes. That means you had seen that it was occurring in male, it was occurring in female. So this type of inheritance does not spare any particular person. Okay, and so the gene can be transmitted from male to male, or female, or male to female, or female to male, either of them. Okay, then this type of transmission is seen in every generation. No generation, first, second, third, no one will skip this autosomal type of inheritance. It occurs in every generation. Okay, then the number of normal and affected children in a generation is in equal proportion. Right. Also, the affected child will always have an affected parent. So, or if it is not so, then the child must have got a gene mutated during its development. That is during the gametogenesis, or means how can the baby is being formed. Then the child has acquired this type of autosomal disorder, right? And also normal offsprings, if they are there, then they will never transmit the type of inheritance to the subsequent generation. So what are the common autosomal disorders and traits? They are either common baldness, the ABO type of blood grouping, then you have RH blood grouping, then Huntington's chorea or Huntington's disease, and then you have the myoclonic dystrophy, and then you have this polycystic kidney, the hemorrhagic telangiectasia, and then the hereditary spherocytosis, the Marfan syndrome, or neurofibromatosis. I'll just pause for 2 minutes, that if in case you are taking down notes, so you just can write these traits and disorders in the piece of paper you are carrying. But you have to be really fast. I cannot see from here that who is noting and who is not, right? And how much time you are taking for noting down. Yeah, so this was autosomal dominant inheritance. Now we come on to the autosomal recessive type of inheritance. In that, we have taken an example of a male and a female carrying the recessive type of gene. So this recessive disorder is present, the gene of it is present on just one chromosome, the light colored gene, right? So the resultant progeny will be that if this father mates with the mother, then this child will be normal. Or you can have this type of child who is carrying one affected gene and one normal gene, right? So the child will be carrier in this case. Mind you, in autosomal recessive inheritance type, both the genes on the autosomes should be same. So if suppose they are carrying autosomal recessive type of inheritance disorder, then the other chromosome also should have that particular gene for it to manifest. Otherwise, the person is going to be carrier. Same with this one, has carried one abnormal gene and one normal gene. So this son will be the carrier, and the daughter who is carrying now both the abnormal genes will be affected by the disorder. So we can say that 50% chances are there that the child will be inheriting recessive inheritance or disorder, and 25% chances are there that the child born will be unaffected, and 25% chances are there that the child born may carry the abnormal gene on both the chromosomes and will manifest the disorder. So what are the common characteristics of autosomal recessive type of inheritance? That it is the single gene which is not going to express this type of disorder. The person appears healthy but is a carrier. Okay, then so the carrier is also known as heterozygous type of individual. That means one carrying one gene which is normal and one is abnormal. That type of combination will be heterozygous type of combination, right? And the trait is running in the same generation in the siblings, and parents of this child will never be affected, because if they're affected, then it is both the chromosomes which are going to carry, right? And so if the parents are not affected, then that means they are carriers of this particular disorder. Right. In autosomal recessive type of inheritance, you will see that both males and females are affected, and you also see this type of inheritance generally in consanguineous marriage. Now, what is consanguineous marriage? Marriage between the relatives. For example, generally Muslims have marriages with Chacha Bhatiji, or you can say Fufa Bhatiji or Mosa Bhanji, something like that. Right. What are the common disorders examples for autosomal recessive type of inheritance? They are sickle cell anemia, the Tay-Sachs disease, the cystic fibrosis, the phenylketonuria. In detail about this, I think you are going to do in biochemistry. Right. Again, a second, a pause for you to jot down these 3-4 disorders. Yeah, so now we switch on to the sex-linked type of inheritance. Now, sex-linked type of inheritance can either be Y-linked type, because males will be XY, or it could be X-linked types, because males also carry one chromosome, X chromosome, and females, so naturally they have 2 X chromosomes. So the X-linked this inheritance can be either recessive or dominant. Now, first let's see what is Y-linked inheritance. Y-linked inheritance, the person, the child, is going to carry this disorder from the, inherit this disorder from the father, right? So it is the father, all sons of this father will be affected, and no female will ever have Y-linked type of inheritance, right? The reason you know why, right? And you will see that only males are affected. Again, you can reason out why, because Y-linked you will not find in females, right? For example, you have the hairy pinna. Now, this is hairy pinna. Pinna, you all know, this is hairy pinna. And you may see that ma'am is giving us example. This person is wearing this earring, and then also saying that this is male. So for that, you should know that even males these days, they wear the earrings. So in males, you have this hypertrichosis pinning, which is also known as hairy pinna. Right, then you have the X-linked dominance type of inheritance. We have taken this example to explain what is X-linked dominant type of inheritance. In this is an abnormal gene. Now, it being dominant, even one gene present in the child can express it, right? You don't have to have the two chromosomes, 2 X-linked chromosomes to carry the disorder. Okay? So this X, suppose, for example, the father who will be affected. Why? Because this gene will not be present on Y, right? So father is called as hemiazygous and can express the disorder even if it is present on one X chromosome. It will not be same with the females. Okay, so you can see that the father is giving this chromosome to the daughters. He will never pass it on to the sons. Why? It is crystal clear, because Y chromosomes sons inherit from their father, and it is the Y which is not carrying this abnormal gene. So far, the sons will never be affected. It will be the daughters who will be not affected, of course, but they will be carriers of this. They will be affected because it's a dominant trait, right? So females are affected, but males are not. So none of the affected father's child, none of the sons will be affected, but all of his daughters will be affected by this dominant type of inheritance. So we'll see what are the common characteristics of this X-linked dominant type of inheritance. We see that only one defective gene on X chromosome is good enough to give us X-linked type of dominant disorder. And X-linked dominant traits, they do not necessarily affect males more than females, right? Just like X-linked recessive. In X-linked recessive, you will see that it is more common in males compared to females, right? All the daughters of the affected father will also be affected, which we had seen, and none of his sons will be affected. Similarly, if mother is affected, then the child is always affected, right? I told you this, that males are hemiazygous for X chromosome. That means they have just one X chromosome on which gene will be present. The counterpart will not be present on the Y chromosome. So they have only one copy of X chromosome gene. Then, so that's why it is expressed more in case of males, even though it is present on just one chromosome. What are the various types of X-linked dominant disorders? We have vitamin D rickets. We have X-linked dominant porphyria. We have fragile X syndrome, and you have XG blood group. Right? Again, a pause of a second, because these are just four. You can write it very easily. Now, then we go on to X-linked recessive type of inheritance. For that, we have taken this example, so you can see that the mutated gene is present on X chromosome in father, and it is the normal genes which are present on the X chromosomes in mother. But this father is going to express the disorder. Why? Because Y chromosome will not compensate for this type of mutation. Okay, so what is the resultant progeny? How can we say what are the chances that the child will be affected? So the parents can be told that either the son born will not be affected, right? Or the daughter born may just be a carrier, or the daughter born will just be a carrier. So daughters born will just be carrier, and sons born will be normal. So you have 50-50% chances That is what you can explain to the father. Okay, so none of his sons would be affected. All his daughters will be carriers. Why carriers? Because the same normal gene is present on the X chromosome of the female, the other X chromosome of the female, and this will naturally compensate for this mutant gene. So what are the common characteristics of X-linked recessive disorders? That the recessive trait manifests itself only when it is present in double amount, in double dose, especially in females. Males, only on one X chromosome, they can express the disorder. I've told you why, right? And it is this type of inheritance is rarely seen in females. Heterozygous females will not manifest the disorder. Why? Because there only one X chromosome will carry mutant gene. The other one is there ready to counteract the mutant gene. But they want to transmit the disorder to next generation. So we say that the heterozygous females, they'll be carrier. I've told you this, that males, if they have the disorder on just one chromosome, then they will manifest the disorder. Because the other Y chromosome will not be ready to compensate for this mutant gene. Right? And then this also I've told you that if it is present on just one X chromosome, the mutant gene, then you call as hemiazygous, right? Then the affected males will always, as we have seen, will always affect his daughters, but the daughters will be carriers, will not be affected. Right? So these are the common examples of the X-linked recessive inheritance. The ocular albinism, the hemophilia, color blindness, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Again, a pause of few seconds if you have to jot down. So now we see what is polygenic inheritance. Polygenic inheritance is inheritance, of course, the pattern of inheritance is not known in this. It is not so crystal clear like Mendelian's inheritance, right? Because it is multiple genes which are involved. So it is the result of the collective effect of more than one genes. Examples of it will be seen in the height, in the skin color. You cannot say that a white person will always produce a white progeny. Okay, then the eye colors, the weight, they are all examples of polygenic inheritance. Then what about multifactorial inheritance? Multifactorial inheritance, as I've already told you, that apart from genes, that is more than one gene, that is more two or more genes, even the lifestyle and the environmental factors, they superimpose on the effects of genes, right? So this type of inheritance is called as multifactorial inheritance. Again, this will not follow Mendelian pattern of inheritance. It runs in the family, although its occurrence is just by 2 to 4%. What are the examples of multifactorial disorders? For example, some heart disease or high blood pressure, Alzheimer's, arthritis, diabetes, carcinoma, obesity. So you can jot down all this. In the meanwhile, I'll just take the example of Alzheimer's. See, if a particular person in the family has got Alzheimer's, then you cannot always say that his descendants will also have Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's has multiple factors. For example, that person, the next generation person, is using brains quite a lot, and people who are mentally active will have Alzheimer's set in late. So you cannot say that if a a person in the family has had Alzheimer's, then that person's child or grandchild will also have Alzheimer's. Depends on their activities, because these disorders, they are influenced by the environment. I think you must have jotted down all these points, right? So next we switch on to the this thing, only the multifactorial and polygenic disorders. They do not, as I have already told you, they do not have a clear-cut pattern of inheritance, and it is difficult to predict how the subsequent generation is going to be produced. Okay, and this I've already told you that it does not follow the Mendelian pattern of inheritance, and it occurs more as compared to single gene disorders in the family. Then we come on to the mitochondrial type of inheritance. Mitochondrial, the DNA are present in the mitochondria as well, and it has been seen that this mitochondrial DNA is in the developing embryo is derived from maternal ovum only, right? So this type of inheritance is also called as maternal inheritance. So this is passed from mothers to their children. For example, I think in the newspapers also you must have read that the intelligence factor is running in the family more, being inherited in the family more by the mother compared to father. So intelligence comes through is mitochondrial inheritance. It comes through the mother to the child, right? For example, one intelligence I have already told you, the example being the myoclonic epilepsy with ragged red fiber disease. This is another example of mitochondrial inheritance. Right. So now we see the P degree. Right. What is P degree? I think this is being introduced to you people for the first time. Now, what is P degree? P degree is nothing but a diagram to show the relationships in the family and how a disease is running in the family. What is the mode of inheritance, right? So you make this P degree chart for an individual or who's coming to the genetic counselor, right? The genetic counselor builds in the P degree chart, will ask that how was the disease running in your ancestors, right? And so from this can predict what are the chances of this type of disorder to be carried in the family in future, right? So this, it is just predicting the probability of the particular genetic disorder which is going to occur in the family or in the offspring. And this analysis is more done by the genetic counselors. And this is P degree charting is used by the researchers. How do we construct the P degree chart? We use certain symbols and lines. The symbols represent people and the lines represent the relationship. Right. So by means studying this, you may not be clear what ma'am is speaking about. But by seeing this, everything is going to be crystal clear. Right. So what are the symbols used in P degree charting? For example, if you just make a circle, then that will be representing female in the family. Right. If you represent a square, then it will depict male, right? And if you blacken it, then it depicts that particular person is suffering from the disorder. So for example, if it is a black square, then it means that male is affected by the disorder, and if it is circle, black circle, then means that female is affected by the disorder. And then this symbol, a circle with a cross, right? This with a line, oblique line, with this means that the person has died in the family, right? Can be regarding some ancestors. And this way you represent the twins, right? And then a circle with brackets around will be representing an adopted child. Any miscarriage will be represented by triangle. Right, I'll give you a pause coming on to this next then. First, you just make this quickly, or you know about it, I just cannot figure out. Right, then the horizontal line connecting a female and a male means that marriage is there, marriage line, it depicts the marriage line. A vertical line descending is the line of descent, and then the two offsprings, a male and a female, the two offspring. So this is what is sibling line. By 1 and 2 we are representing generations. This is first generation, this is second generation, right? So if we are clear about the P-degree symbols, then we see that for determining, first you'll make up the chart, then you have to analyze it, right? So when you analyze, you have to see whether the disease running in the family is dominant or recessive, or it is autosomal or sex-linked disorder, which is running in the family. So for dominant and recessive, you should remember that if it is a dominant trait, at least one parent must carry the trait which you're talking about. And another thing you should know that dominant traits, they will never skip a generation. That is, they are coming then in first generation and then they are in third generation. They will never skip. They will be in first, in second, and then third, right? Similarly, when you have to differentiate between the autosomal and the sex-linked disorders, then you will see that in males and females, they are affected by this disorder in equal proportions in autosomal disorders, as we had seen. That either male can be affected or female can be affected. And it is very clear also, because it is not X-linked or Y-linked. Right? So autosomes can run in males also and females also. So this type of disorder can occur in equal proportions, and you should remember that the males are more frequently involved in X-linked recessive disorder. Why? Because even if it is one X chromosome and the person is male, then also he can manifest the disorder. And if he's getting one mutant gene from the female, then also this male can express the disorder. And so we say that males are more frequently involved in X-linked recessive disorders. So one by one, we will see the P-degree charting in case of the diseases we have talked, right? So first we will see the autosomal dominant type P-degree charting. For that we have taken this example. You all know that square, blank square will mean a male not affected, and circle, blackened circle means a female who is affected. Blackened square means a male who is affected. This line, horizontal line, meaning they are married. This vertical line is showing the line of descent, and these are the siblings, right? The male is affected and the female is not affected in this case. This case, female is affected and a female is not affected and males are affected. So if we see this charting, then what do we confer from this type of chart? we see that it is running in all generations. So if it is not skipping a generation, it is not going to be a recessive disorder. It is going to be a dominant type of trait we are talking of, right? And also you can see that either female can be affected or male can be affected. So it is running in equal proportions. So it is an autosomal trait. So we say that this type of disease running in the family is autosomal dominant type of disorder or autosomal dominant inheritance. Right, now some of the examples you can always is the same as we had talked of. So I will not give a pause now. It is common baldness, ABO blood grouping, RH blood grouping, Huntington's chorea, myotonic dystrophy, polycystic kidney, hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia, hereditary spherocytosis, Marfan syndrome, and neurofibromatosis. Then we talk of the pedigree charting in case of the autosomal recessive inheritance. All right. In autosomal recessive inheritance, you can see it is not occurring in first generation. It is not occurring in third generation. That means it is skipping the generations. So it is a recessive trait, and also it is affecting females and males in more or less equal proportion. So it is a autosomal trait. Now, so it is autosomal recessive type of inheritance. Right. So example being the sickle cell anemia, we have already done the Tay-Sachs disease, the cystic fibrosis, the phenylketonuria, alkaptonuria, and albinism. We come on to the X-linked dominant inheritance. Now, X-linked dominant inheritance, see, it is running in all generations. So this is the shaded one. They are affected, right? In all generations, they are affected, males and females. So we can say that it is running in all generations. That means it is not skipping any generation, so it is a dominant trait. And since, see, females, if you count, females are more affected compared to males, so it is not going to be a autosomal trait. So we can say it is an X-linked type of dominant inheritance. Examples being vitamin D rickets, porphyria, fragilis X syndrome, orofacial digital syndrome type 1. These are some of the examples of X-linked dominant inheritance. Right, so now we come on to the X-linked recessive type of inheritance. In X-linked recessive type of inheritance, that if we see the pedigree charting, it is skipping generation. It is not occurring in first generation. So this kind of inheritance is recessive, and it is affecting males more, right? Males more, so it is going to be X-linked trait. So ultimately, we say by seeing this pedigree chart, we say that it is X-linked recessive inheritance. Right? For example, you have ocular albinism, hemophilia, color blindness, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, ectodermal dysplasia, Lesch-Nyhan syndrome, and glucose 6-phosphatase dehydrogenase deficiency. What about the pedigree charting for the Y-linked inheritance? Now, in case of pedigree charting of Y-linked inheritance, you can see from this is being carried from males to males only. None of the females are affected, meaning it is Y-linked inheritance. So what are the examples of Y-linked traits or disorders? It is male infertility and hypertrichosis pinna, which we had already seen, Thierry Pinna, and that I think is O.